Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all of you who have been joining us on the Common Ground webinar series. Time does fly when we do things that we have fun with, and we are already on episode 6. 6 weeks have gone by in a blur and has been filled with great learning, and very, very interesting presenters have shared their knowledge and wisdom with us in the past weeks. PMI India initiated the Common Ground webinar series uh, to support all the people here during the tough times that we are going through so that we can also learn from others. This is a platform that helps bring people together where we can find commonalities which we do not expect normally from various industries and various domains and various experts. And more importantly, we hope that we are all able to learn from these commonalities from other industries and other perspectives and use it for doing good. These sessions have been hugely popular with over 800 people attending each of these sessions. Two facts have been really heartening about these programs. One, nearly one third of the participants in all of these sessions have been people who are brand new to PMI. These sessions, as you know, are open to everybody. You just have to register. So please do share the news among your friends and colleagues. And it's great to see nearly one third of the people coming in from non-PMI affiliated uh, areas, which is very heartening. The other really heartening fact that we just found browsing through the statistics is that one third of the people who come in are from Gen X, the future, and that also augurs well both for all of us and for the future of the industry. Having said that, today we have two extraordinarily experienced stalwart speakers who are going to share their knowledge and wisdom with us. The first of the speakers is Lee Lambert. Lee Lambert is currently the CEO of Lambert Consulting Group, is a PMI fellow, but for most of us, he's very well known as the person who founded the PMP credential. With nearly a million people around the world who have taken the credential, all of us have one point of time or the other gone through the PMBOK and have felt exhilarated when we passed the exam. So we have got Lee to thank for that. He comes with over 40, 50 years of experience in the world of project management and is considered to be one of the world's thought leaders on the topic. His book, Project Management, The Common Sense Approach, is a worldwide bestseller, and he has taken on multiple leadership roles as well within PMI. Just in the last month, it has been extremely fantastic of Lee to go around the world on webinars, sharing his experience. And today he's going to spend some time with us talking about things that are very close to his heart. So, Lee, it's a great privilege for me to invite you here. And we are all looking forward to listening to you on Pandemic and the PPM. And we'd really love to hear your insights. I would also like to thank you for starting on this session at 6:30 a.m. your time in the US. So, Lee, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. I got to tell you right now that I don't just get up at 6:30 in the morning for anybody. So this is an exciting opportunity for me. I've heard so much about this program you're doing that to be a part of it, I'm very, very pleased to add my input into what you're trying to get out in the way of knowledge for the project management in the world of PMI. Let me quickly say this. My first slide you'll see is something that really represents what I want to talk about today. I've been in the business for about 54 years. I've been a PMI member for 42 of those years. And when I started, I certainly didn't ever think it'd end up where it is today. But what I've seen happen with PMI and the opportunities that it helps people take advantage of to further their career and their performance in their job has really gotten me committed to the idea of spreading the word. I almost feel like an evangelist sometimes, trying to convert people into the thinking that gives them the opportunity. And PMI sets about giving all of us a chance to be part of that particular growth. So a CEO that doesn't get it, that's the beauty of the pandemic. And I mean, I know I hate to say the pandemic's been a good thing because it certainly hasn't been, but from one perspective, it has been a good thing because it's sort of focused on the fact that we still need to continue to operate, continue to do business, whether we can go into the office or not, whether we can be face to face with people or not. And so the pandemic has really forced us to look at how we do that. So that's what I want to spend a little time on, is this idea that we can actually, and it's a beautiful thing for me. I've always thought this is a great idea with the PPM, with the Project Portfolio Management System capability. I literally don't even need to go into the office. We've done some studies here in the U.S., and it is determined that to maintain office space and the operational capability for an individual in an office for the company costs $28,000 US dollars. So if I can eliminate that, that's a big savings to the company, and it provides the opportunity for the individual to be much more flexible in how they do their job. So I want to talk about that and how that's working out and what I can see happening in the future. Change the slide, please. So what we're looking at is this idea of digital transformation. I mean, it's a hot topic. All the consultant groups, they just say digital transformation. Immediately, they've got jobs. It's something that we've got to really face up. That if we don't do it, we'll look like the CEO that I showed you in the previous slide. So we're investing tremendous amounts of money in digitally transforming our operational capabilities within our organizations, and project management plays right into this. It's such a beautiful segue to go from project management to digital transformation and then back again to enable us to do a better job at what we do. Next slide. And I put this slide in kind of as a personal reference, in that when I'm selling, when I'm trying to, from an evangelistic standpoint, trying to sell PMI or a product or a process, I want to make sure you understand that salespeople, the people who try to convince you to take a chance, their primary responsibility is to create the illusion of need. Because once we identify a need, then to fill it becomes much more important. So I put this in as an example. When I got married 54 years ago tomorrow, we spent a little time on a honeymoon, and then we settled into a basement apartment in Salt Lake City, Utah, with tile floors. And so I'm sitting in my front room, living room, watching TV, and I hear a knock on the door, and I go to the door and I look out the peephole, and I see this guy standing out there with a vacuum in his hands and hoses all wrapped all around him. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to deal with salespeople. I'm not in the market for anything like this. But I thought, well, at least I have the courtesy to let the guy know. So I opened the door, and he immediately started into his spiel about this vacuum. And I said, wait. I said, listen, let me show you what I got here. I said, I don't really think I need a vacuum. And I stepped aside and let him see. I said, see, look at my floor. And he looks at the floor and he goes, it's tile, all tile. I said, yeah, I don't need a vacuum. It's all tile. So I thought I'd shut him down, but no, he was very tenacious, and he said to me, do you have a bed? And I thought to myself, do I have a bed? I just got married. Of course I have a bed. It's one of the first things I bought, and it's a brand new one. And he said, well, let's go in the bedroom. Now I've never had this happen before, so I was a little bit taken aback. But okay, let's go in the bedroom. So we started walking towards the bedroom, and he said, "Is your wife here?" I said, "She is." He said, "Get her." So I hollered in to Carolyn. I said, "Carolyn, this guy wants to go in the bedroom with us." And she said, "For what?" And I said, "Well, something to do with the vacuum." She said, "Okay, I'm game." So we went in the bedroom. He immediately pulls back the bed covers, pulls back, finally gets to bare mattress. And then he fires this vacuum up. It sounds like a jet engine going through my house. Fires it up, and he runs a hose over the mattress 2 or 3 times, and then takes a little filter that he strategically placed in the hose out and rubs on it, and a pile of the most disgusting looking crud that I'd ever seen piled up on my tile floor. And by now, he'd already figured out the decision making process. And so he turned to my wife and he said, "Do you see that?" And she goes, "Yeah." He said, "That's your dead skin. And you're sleeping in that every night of your life." Boom, we bought that vacuum in about 10 seconds. My wife said, "I'm not sleeping in dead skin." I said, wait a minute, come. So I pulled her aside away from where he could hear. And I said, "Carolyn, listen, if we're decomposing at that rate, it won't matter in a couple of months." And so she said, "No, I'm not doing. I want the vacuum." So that salesman had done what you need to do when it comes to project management is he created the illusion of need. In other words, he created the reason why I was going to buy a vacuum. This is a vacuum that at the time cost $600 and I'm making $375 a month. So not a wise decision. However, if your product is good, if an example of project management, if it's as good as I say it is, you won't have to worry about people using it. They'll be beating down the door to get it. And so with this vacuum, I got to tell you, we didn't need it, but 54 years later, I still have that vacuum because it was an outstanding product. He created the illusion of need, which drove me to buy. But once I bought, then I began to experience the benefits, the advantages that it takes. And I want you to think about project management the same way. You got to look at it from that standpoint. You got to look at it from the standpoint of I need the support system. In other words, I need the capability to live up to the hype because project management gets a lot of hype. And so we want to be able to live up to the hype and be able to do that in a way that utilizing a PPM, a system that integrates vertically and horizontally everything that's going on in the organization, then I can be able to take advantage of the structure and the framework that project management provides. Let's look at this now. Here's the point I want to make. The beauty of project management. About in the 1980s, a guy named Paul Dinsmore, who's a PMI fellow, lives out of Rio de Janeiro. He's from Houston, but he wrote a book called "Managing Organizations by Project." That book was the basis for the concept we sometimes call enterprise project management. But unfortunately, it was a little ahead of its time because what happens now is that we find that project management is the thread that holds organizations together, and it's bigger than just a project. It integrates everything that it takes to get work done within an organization based on some structure. Let's call it the WBS. We hang a lot of stuff on that. But that's what we want to do is we want to have a PPM that can generate the kind of decision support information that's going to enable me and the company to do a better job. So the danger associated with that is, and I found this to be true, is that when you get a mature PPM in your organization, there's a tendency to spend more time generating data than there is analyzing information. So I want to caution you. If you do it well, if you structure your project so that you have a vertical hierarchy that's integrated and you have a horizontal that integrates the various silos across the organization, then you're going to have a massive amount of data that your responsibility in project management is to convert data into decision support information. And what that means is you may not need all the data, you may not use all the data, but it's there if you need it to support a decision that you're going to make. When I went to the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Richland, Washington, here in the States, my job was to improve the reporting process, implement project management, and improve the ability to make good, sound decisions. So I did that by looking at what they had and then deciding what they needed, which was a very different concept. So the first time I was there, it was time to take the report down to the control office where the Department of Energy oversaw everything that we did. So I told my admin to get the report ready and let's go. So the next thing I know, he rolls in a hand truck and he's got about a 5-foot stack of the old computer paper, if you recall. Some of you are probably old enough to remember that. About 5 feet tall, and I looked at that. I said, "What in the world is this?" And he says, "That's our monthly report." He said, "We send this down every month to the Department of Energy." And I looked at it, I said, "That's impossible." I said, "This is a $300 million a year laboratory. There's just no way we could generate that much information that's needed for them to manage the laboratory." He said, "No, no, they love it." I said, so down we went. Okay, so we got down there and introduced myself to him. He's a good guy. He's got a pickup truck with a gun in the back, and he's a good old boy. And I asked him, "What's this?" And he said, "What? You brought it? What do you mean? What's this?" It's a monthly report. I said, "It's too big. It's too big. There's no way you're using all this information. We're generating mountains of information and nobody's using it." He said, "Oh no, my people, I have 12 control officers. They use it religiously. It's something that they count on to manage the organization." I said, "I'll make you a bet. If I can prove that nobody's using this, can I raise the level of detail one?" We were reporting at the 7th level of a work breakdown. So can we raise the level of detail one? "Absolutely." He said, "But you'll never prove it. We love this report." So the next month, I get the report, still 5 feet. I haven't proven yet. I haven't won my bet yet. But I salt the report with some information that if anybody's actually reading the report, I'm probably going to get a phone call and send it on down. Okay, nothing, no call. So that confirms they're not using it. So the next month, I raise it another level. Now it's down to about 18 inches. And I salt it with and send it on down. Nothing. So finally, by the 3rd month, I'm sort of bored with the game. And so this time I salt it with some things about his family, primarily his mother and his sister. And then I sent that down. And it hadn't been down there 5 minutes. Then I got a call. And then we didn't have caller ID back in those days, but I knew who it was. I said, "Frank, what's up?" And he said, "I'll tell you what's up." He said, "I don't know what you're trying to pull here, Lee. You're not going to get away with it. This is ridiculous." He said, "This is just not going to go." And I said, What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'll tell you what I mean. I've been sitting here. The report got down here about 5 minutes ago. I've been sitting here looking at it." And Lee, he said, "Didn't this report used to be a lot thicker?" He still hadn't read it. When I left that laboratory to come out here to Columbus, Ohio, where I live now, we were reporting to the Department of Energy with a 24-page report. So we had gone from 5 feet tall to 24 pages. Now, all the information that generated the 5 foot tall report was still in the system, but we selectively drew out the information that added value and left the rest in case it was need for reference. So it's not about more. It's not about do I have a system that just completely inundate me with information, but information is data. It'll data if you've got to convert it to information. That's your responsibility. And the beauty of it is that project management, the framework of project management, sets up the ability to do this vertically and horizontally across the organization. Next slide, please.
Lee, I think we're ready with the poll now. If you don't mind, we'll go back a step.
Absolutely.
So Lee, you got the answers about 193 out of 400 people, nearly 50% of the respondents say that if they had a very good PPM system, they would be able to do all their work without leaving home. Uh, about 67 of them are not sure, and 32 of them are saying no. So I think that gives you a good indication of where most of us would like to spend our time. We would like to stay home if we can.
Very good. That's very interesting input. I'm glad to see that many people feel comfortable that they have that kind of a capability. Remember what we're doing with this idea of a PPM is we're integrating across the organization. One of the things that Sunil Prashar has been really emphasizing in his new role as CEO of PMI is this concept of the project economy. And what he's really saying, if you read what he writes and listen to what he says, he's basically saying everything's a project. So we need to manage everything as if it's a project, and when it integrates with the rest of the organization, we get the results that we're looking for. We want to create a link between all parts of the organization. We demonstrated this clearly with IBM in 1993 when Lou Gerstner came in and took over and made a claim that project management was going to be the thread that held IBM together from that point forward. Now, when he came on, they were projecting an $8 billion loss. And within 4 years, he turned that company around and gave much of the credit from a system standpoint to the concept of project management. So the link needs to be there. We need to take advantage of it and capitalize on the power of a PPM. An automated capability to withdraw information to support decisions needs to be there. Now, back when I started in '54, we had the only tools we had available to us was what they were was a paper and a pencil. Those are the two. Those are the powerful tools we had back in those days. Now you've got so much more capability. Okay, next slide. Here's one of the things that have grown out of this process is this idea of a dashboard. Everybody's got a dashboard. Everybody wants a dashboard, and so we got that dashboard capability to give us prior warning when things are starting to go off track. So if we use the data that lives in the PPM and integrate it into the project process and create project dashboards, we can avoid surprise problems. We can anticipate and make changes along the way that enable us to avoid disasters on some of our projects. Next slide. But when we do create this PPM, there's plenty of them for sale. I've been doing some work with a company out of Ireland called Cora Systems. They got a nice PPM. I've gone through some demos with it, and I like it, and I find that it's as good or better than any of the others that I've seen. There's plenty of them on the market, but the key is it needs to be tailored to the needs of your organization. If somebody tries to tell you there's an off-the-shelf application for PPM, run, because they're lying to you. It's not off the shelf. Most off the shelf applications that I've experienced take two or 3 years before they're, quote, off the shelf. So you've got to tailor it to fit the needs of the organization. That's what another beauty of project management is. It's scalable. You don't, everything doesn't apply on everything you do. So you scale it to meet the needs of your organization. Next slide. So in order to do that, we have to take into account all the stakeholders. Everybody is a stakeholder in one form or another. Now, I always categorize mine as control stakeholders and impact stakeholders and interested stakeholders. The key with this idea of stakeholders is we need to involve the people that have an effect on how I can execute projects and involve them in a way that by linking them together from a systematic standpoint, we can have open, honest, candid communications on a regular basis and keep our projects in the forefront of success. So that's what we want to do is decide who are all the stakeholders. We even added a section in the PMBOK called Stakeholder Management. That's how critical it is. That's how important it is. And so with the PPM process, all the data is there that will give me insights into what kinds of communications I should be taking on with my organization. We create a communications plan. Well, if I don't have information, I can't do any communication. So the stakeholder study becomes a very important part of the process. Next slide. And here's the big advantage. 193 of you said you could work from home. That's awesome. I used to dream of this when I was still working. I don't work now. I just talk. When I was still working, I dreamed of the time that I didn't have to go into the office. I could have saved an hour going, an hour coming back, and end up working more time at home, producing more product at home, and still not have to go into the office. So that's what a PPM does for you. It virtually gives you the opportunity to work and communicate, by the way. It's not as though you won't communicate, but I can work from home. $28,000 per person, save 10 people from going in. You're talking $280,000. So it's very well worth it to allow that to happen. So some managers aren't up to speed on this shit. Some managers think you have to be there physically so I can see you before I can trust that you're doing work. That's not that way anymore. We work. I've found out I work more at home, longer hours, and produce more product at home than I ever did at the office. So keep that in mind in how you structure your system so that it's usable in remote locations. Next slide, please. But remember, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch program. You have to contribute as an individual who wants to capitalize on a PPM. And use that capability to work from home or from some remote location, you have to realize you've got to invest. You've got to help people understand what the needs are, help them understand what the system capabilities need to be, and a lot of that comes your own skin in the game. That we want the people to be a participant. When I've incorporated PPM, when I've implemented PPM, and I've done 4 enterprise-wide applications of project management in my career, when I do that, I very actively involve the participants so that when we get done with the design, we come up with a product that people will actually use. I've seen a couple organizations that implemented project management, and when I looked at the manual, it was beautiful. It was exactly what a project management process should look like. But yet, when they looked at the implementation in the organization, it was a failure. So you've got to make sure that you invest the time in getting information from everyone who's involved. Next slide. And here's probably one of the most important slides in the deck. If we're going to use a PPM for project management, if we're going to use that as our way to effectively manage projects, then it's important that the executives are on board, that they're willing to invest what it takes to create a PPM implementation. Unfortunately, we get people excited. The executives get excited about the potential. Okay, now we're creating the illusion of need. So they get excited about the potential of a PPM, but then when they begin to implement it, they start to realize there's no free lunch, and they've got to be prepared to invest and support the people who are developing and implementing the PPM. If the bosses aren't on board, it's going to be a very painful trip. So we want to make sure we incorporate them. Whenever I get involved with a PPM selection, I'll spend more time talking with the executives about what they can get from the system than I will talking to the individual contributors, because many of them already know. They're senior level experienced PMs. They know what kind of information they need to do the job. Higher levels of the executives, they're not aware of how project management can be integrated into becoming, frankly, as Lou Gerstner said for IBM, it's more than a project management system. It's a business management system based on project management. So that's a trip that you want to take. You want to get them involved. You've got to get the bosses excited about it. You've got to convert them into the idea that there's a way to manage our organization that's going to be much more efficient than what we've previously used. All right, that's the end of my formal presentation. I had to rush that a little bit because of our poll problem, but I think we got everything in. And now the fun part for me is the questions. I love this part of the session when we can get the chance to look at real live questions that you might have.
Hey, Lee, thank you so much for that session. And I think it was very, very thought provoking. Some of the questions have come through, and I'm going to just read them out for you, and you can answer that. So this is a question from Alankar. I think it goes back to your anecdote about data points. He says, "What do you do as a project manager when senior management refuses to accept new and less data points to make decisions?
Yeah, well, that's a pretty simple question. You know what I did when I had that happen? What I did was I just quit. No, I'm kidding. Here's what you've got to do. This has been my rule of thumb forever. Is I've got to point out to the users of the information what the value add of that information is. Describe to them why they want to use it, what it will do for helping them make decisions. And if I can't do that, if I can't tell them what the benefits are, then they're going to conclude there's no benefits. So really, it rests with you. I know we like to blame senior man. What's the matter with these people? When they wake up, I'm telling them what you got to show value add. If you don't show value add, you're just another person yapping at them to do something different. But I always make sure I can show value add. What's in it for me? And then all of a sudden they say, "Hey, oh, okay." And by the way, with the PPM, there's no extra work here because of the way we've structured the thing. We can pull, twist, and slice data from vertically, horizontally, diagonally, and give them what they need to do a better job.
Thank you. So this is the next question from Vimal. He says, with agile becoming a lot more prevalent now, what should PMO teams do differently to ensure that PPM still stays relevant?
Well, first of all, with the agile, of course, I wasn't a big fan of agile when it first started, to be honest with you, because I'm old school, predictive. But as I've looked at it and as I've seen it evolve, I've become a not a full convert yet, but a semi convert. And one of the reasons is I get information, status information, and projection information much more frequently with agile than I ever did with predictive. So the data is alive in the system. We're reporting it on a much more regular basis. And so, from a PMO perspective, I want to be sure that the people implementing projects are aware. I don't have to wait a month or 2 weeks before I can determine where we are from a data standpoint and convert that into realism. So I think Agile has some huge benefits in regards to statusing and evolving into the requirements rather than trying to define them in detail up front. So the PMO has to support that. That's a different approach. But what I've seen with the PMOs now is in some organizations they have a PMO set up to where they have a predictive side and an agile side or hybrid side, and so you still maintain the clarity of those two approaches because everything can't be managed by agile, and so you've got to maintain that capability. But the key is to make sure the people in the PMO understand we're going to look at statusing much more frequently, so there's going to be more data in the system, but the system can sort it out and give it to you in a way that makes more sense.
Well, interestingly, Lee, both the next questions I'm combining are about the agile world. So combining question one says, with more and more people wanting to work from home, which was the poll, and agile teams having a need to co-locate, how do you balance that conflict?
Yeah, that's a big issue because one of the points I made was stakeholders. We got to get them involved, and with Agile, of course, you got these stand-up meetings that everybody's supposed to be there for, and now all of a sudden you're finding out nobody's there, everybody's at home. I think we have to look at how do we conduct virtual stand-up meetings. I don't think it's that hard to tell you the truth, but I think we can't not have the stand-up meetings. If I'm going to run Agile and I'm going to be effective with the use of Agile, we have to have those. So if you're the project manager, now remember the project manager's role changes with Agile because the Scrum Master kind of becomes the king of the process. But whoever's running that show needs to make sure they arrange for virtual meetings. People need to be there, so they don't physically have to be there, but they need to be involved. So there's no getting away from the need for virtual stand-up meetings.
All right. And here's a question from Amrita. She's asking, what are the key learnings uh, that she needs to consider when deploying PPM across a large organization? How can she reduce the learning curve and expedite deployment?
The only way to you can shorten the learning curve by demonstration and illustration. In other words, you can dummy up reports and show them what the value of those reports are. You can do that in a way that it gets more uh, real world into the process, and you've got to look at it from that standpoint. What I do, what I encourage people to do, is to use the work breakdown structure as a framework for hanging all this data on it, and then be able to show how that integrates and moves up and down. Now, one of the big problems, I don't know if you have it as much in India as we do, but this whole idea of silos. We were working in a matrix environment. We get a project, and now we got to go beg for resources because 19 other projects want the same darn resources. So you've got to show from a data standpoint, how can I help the silo managers? Now we don't like silo managers oftentimes, but if I want to help them, then I've got to show how horizontally I can integrate that data with the vertical integration of all the projects to show when we're overcommitted or undercommitted. Those kinds of things are viewed as value add very quickly, and if you have a problem, the problem you might get is people are going to see how valuable it is, and now you're going to really be inundated with requests to support more projects as you go through the process.
A lot more questions coming in, Lee. So let me summarize a few of the questions.
Sure.
The theme is what would be, and I will also probably ask you to summarize your key learnings with this. Most organizations in the current pandemic seem to think of project managers as dispensable. So, what's your advice for project professionals in this uncertain times in terms of sticking with the profession itself? And if you can just summarize your learnings for us as well.
Sure. Couple things from a career standpoint. Now, I started out as an engineer, and I saw the potential of project management very early on, so I jumped on that wagon. And what's happened is I have found that with project management, I can make my own career. The effort that I invest, my focus on where do I want to go, has project management has given me that capability. I can be very selective in what I want to do, and I can use each one as a stepping stone to the next opportunity. Now, if you're working with people, the senior level people who don't see the value in what you do, then all you can do is take a couple runs at value add, show them, demonstrate to them, and if that doesn't work, here now this is going to be the bad news. If that doesn't work, move on. Move on to find some place that does appreciate project management. Don't give up early. Try it. Give it your best shot. But I ran up against that once when no matter how I portrayed it, no matter how I presented it to senior level management, they just felt like that was non-productive use of time to do project management. So they basically held the individual contributors accountable for managing the project.
Lee, thank you so much for your thoughts. There are a lot more questions coming in, but I'm going to close the session here. It's been 40 minutes of, I think, fascinating learning, and thank you once again for making time and joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you, Lee.
Thank you so much. I hope to get a chance to come visit with you someday.
Yes, and on behalf of all of us here, we wish you and Carol the very best. Your anniversary coming up tomorrow, so a lot of wishes coming your way from India too.
Thank you so much.
And God bless that vacuum cleaner too.
Thank you. I think I'll go clean now.
All right. Thank you so much, Lee. And to all of us who are waiting for the next session, here PMI has launched the Common Ground webinar series as one of the ways we could keep ourselves usefully occupied during these pandemic situation. There are a lot of other activities that PMI has been doing in the same time globally, not only restricting themselves to PMI members, but to everybody who are not even PMI members. Let's take a quick look at some of the things that PMI has been offering members and non-members in the time of the pandemic, all with an aim of ensuring that we can upskill ourselves and keep ourselves current. Let's take a look. To the next speaker for the day. As you have all seen, PMI has been offering a variety of resources for all of us. apart from what you just saw on the video, there are a lot of new exciting things happening. Check it out at pmi.org/learning/training/development/online courses. While we see that PMI is offering a lot of these things for both PMI and non-PMI members, it takes us neatly to introduce our next speaker for the day. Tejas Sura is founder and managing director of Cubic Turnkey Private Limited, and in this context, it's important to say that he is part of the board of directors of PMI at a global level. So a lot of these initiatives that are coming our way, Tejas would have helped run through the board. He acts as a role model for nearly all of the volunteers who support PMI in India. He has achieved one of the highest positions as a board of director. Tejas, great to have you here. Apart from his role in PMI, he's got over 25 years of experience in the construction industry as well. And he's part of the fellow of the Institute of Directors, and he has taken multiple leadership positions in the construction industry as well. A civil engineer by training, Tejas is a very well-known figure in multiple conferences, and he talks passionately about what is in it for it. The construction industry always stays ahead of the curve. Tejas, thank you for spending your time with us today. Really happy to see you do this, and welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Kaushik. Uh, Thank you for inviting me to do this session here, and it's my pleasure to present on the construction industry. Uh, we're going to talk about rethink, rebuild, revive the way ahead for the construction industry. So, a quick overview. I'm going to talk about the construction industry, what the current state of that industry is right now, something on innovation and disruption. We're also going to look at what are the disruptors in the construction industry and also the new normal. And I'll close with some wonderful quotes from the industry. So the construction industry was basically declared as an industry in March 2000 in India, and it's next to the agriculture industry in GDP contribution. It basically consists of two sectors: the real estate sector and the infrastructure sector, and it employs close to 50 million people in India. It has many upstream economic activities which depend on it, like the steel industry, the paint industry. Almost 85% goes into the construction industry. Around 70% of the glass industry supplies to the construction industry, and it has a significant output from the automobile, the mining industry, excavation, equipment industries, and almost 40,000 enterprises in India, out of which about 99% of the enterprises are small, medium enterprises. So majorly covered by SMEs. It's basically recognized as the basic input for socio-economic development in India. So let's see the current state of this industry. We'll go through all these topics one by one. So let me first take up the jobs and workforce. As far as the jobs and workforce is concerned, basically this industry has not majorly converted to digitization purely because most of the companies are small and medium enterprises. And so employees are not really habituated to working from home. They just can do limited work from home. And that's actually a drawback. There has been already news of employee retrenchment in this industry, and a lot of my connections I have been talking to, they say that salary wages have been unpaid for many people in the industry. There is a big job insecurity atmosphere that is right now in this industry. A lot of people are losing jobs, and so it's a question mark whether these engineers and supervisors and foremen, are they going to retain the jobs or not? So it's a lot of job insecurity. As soon as the lockdown was announced by the government, it included the construction industry. All the construction projects were closed down, and so most of the workforce were accommodated in labor camps. There's a lack of labor right now because most of the laborers have gone back to their villages. So a lot of labor missing from the work sites right now. The government effect has been there on the construction industry. All construction activities were under hold. All projects were under hold. This was contrary to many Western countries where construction activities are considered as an essential service. And so here it was completely closed. Uh, the government actually facilitated remigration of laborers a little bit late, but they did. And the government finally restarted government projects or infrastructure projects to give a little bit of push to this industry. Uh, they also gave some clearances for starting pre-monsoon works where projects were affected by waterproofing and those kind of activities. So they did give some, relaxation in those kind of instances. As far as the operations and supply chain, complete stoppage of operations, including complete stoppage of supply from all the supply vendors, no mining happening, no materials being supplied. Complete construction is a very heavily dependent on procurement. Uh, it consists of a lot of physical goods that are being put up for construction projects, and so all this was impacted. Mining was stopped for natural resources. There was a ban on interstate movement of non-essential goods, and there was shortage of transportation manpower due to the migration of drivers of trucks and so on. So big impact on the construction industry. Uh, as far as finance and liquidity is concerned, clients not paying, uh, liquidity is in the market is very low. Clients themselves may not be getting the money, and so they are not paying to the contractors. But it's very low. There's pressure on the contractors from the suppliers and from the workforce for making payments, and all this is really putting a lot of pressure on the builders and the contractors. There's pressure from financial institutions as the interest is mounting. The government has not asked banks to waive interest for these months, and that again is actually creating a lot of pressure on businesses. So business is not being digitized. Again, billing not happening in spite of possibility of working during the lockdown. A lot of companies have not been able to bill their clients for the work done in March. So a big impact as far as finance and liquidity is concerned. Contractual matters basically this is a post situation. Basically any delay on the project because of this situation is an excusable delay, and it's a compensable delay if it's mentioned in the contract. Contractors could be compensated for it. Lease rentals taken by contractors. There could be equipment on the project site. A lot of contractors have been negotiating the lease rental and trying to waive those lease rentals to be paid to rental companies. Subcontractors, a lot of them are raising their hands post lockdown. Their workmen have all gone back to the villages, and it's difficult for them to continue working uh, for the contractors. So a lot of them have just said, look, we can't do the work, and you can call in some other contractor to get our done. So a lot of negotiations happening for payment to subcontractors during the lockdown. Uh, Completion of pre-monsoon jobs are also under pressure. Monsoon is just about to come in the next 7 to 10 days, and that's again a big pressure on the work sites. Time extensions are being asked by contractors, and they should be awarded. So a lot of steps taken by us and similar other construction companies. Uh, so we've established a cross-functional response team, and we did conduct some working sessions that brought all the leaders in the organization together, and we tried to figure out what needs to be communicated to the employees, to the customers, because communications is basically 90% project management. And it's very, very vital to communicate the situation and also to communicate empathy to our customers. So that's what we've been doing all this time. We've also been communicating with customers regarding how we need to restart the works, and we've been creating some SOPs for restarting the work. So a lot of work has been going on during the lockdown. A lot of thought process has been going on, mainly focusing on the customer and how do we restart these projects. We have been conducting a lot of training to upskill our senior management and employees. So that has been going on, and this has been a good time to train people on different softwares and different tools that they could use at the workplace. So this is what we have been doing. So Mark Twain once said that the secret of getting ahead is getting started, and we need to get started once this lockdown has now been announced that the construction projects can start. We need to get started, and it's time to rethink, rebuild, and revive the industry from this crisis chaos situation. So innovation could be the key, and let's see if this industry is being disrupted because it was long overdue to be disrupted. So can we have the poll? So the top three are basically consulting, construction, automobile. Construction is 42%, manufacturing is 25%, and automobile is 31%. So it's construction, manufacturing, and automobile. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, and so the highest is automation, and the next one is IoT, and then a few feel about augmented reality. So great. The highest is automation. Thank you. So let's hear from the world's leading thinker on innovation, Dr. Clayton M. Christensen of Harvard Business School. I just did a course with him on disruptive business strategy. And what Clayton has to say, disruptive technologies typically enable new markets to emerge. In fact, how you allocate your own resources can make your life turn out to be exactly as you hope or very different from what you intend. So it's all about allocating your own resources, how you allocate them. That's very, very important. Many companies don't realize that their own processes are preventing their organization from pursuing innovative ideas. Good emergent ideas often come from lower level employees. Thus, implementing processes to surface these ideas is critical. And so it's very important to listen to your lower level employees because that could actually lead to disruption in the company. Clayton came up with this concept of what is the job to be done, and it's called JTBD. And basically, the job to be done is what we need to identify is exactly the objective of the disruption. To me, right now, it's to establish the credibility of the developer in India and the credibility of the contractors in India. It has been traditionally, they've been a blacklisted community kind of these developers because they have done a lot of, I would say, unethical things to the customers. So it's very, very high time that they establish the credibility. And the way they can establish the credibility is to conceive as per the market demand, think about what the market really is demanding, deliver what was promised, deliver on time, provide a reasonable price tag to what they are selling, deliver a quality construction, maintain communication of updates to all customers that how the project is progressing, and then provide post-construction maintenance. I think this is what all the contractors and developers need to do in order to re-establish their credibility in this Indian market. Let's see what are the disruptors in the construction industry and the new normals. And we look at each of these disruptors independently in the further slides. So the first digital technology I would like you to really look at is building information modeling. A lot of you must have heard about BIM, and the growth of BIM is really accelerating. Yet today, the disconnect of data models are resulting in colossal rework, and there is duplication of a lot of activities, and there's a lot of untapped data that's out there, and there's no real integration of data that's happening because a lot of the stakeholders in construction are not adopting BIM. So this is a technology that needs to be adopted where a 3D model of a structure, including the types of materials, the types of finishes, all the data is there in that, including electrical, mechanical, structural, architectural, all data is there in that one model. And it really helps to preserve the data and to utilize the data even during the maintenance period. The second one is augmented reality. And this is also for builders and developers. It has a 3D visualization of future projects within their surrounding environment. For example, you have a piece of land and you can actually show your customers what is going to be constructed in this particular place through a 3D model on that piece of land and how it would develop. It also results in automated measuring of buildings. It results in past simulations. It also helps in safety training and hazard simulation. So a lot of applications of augmented reality. And we will also see an example on project planning and simulation through a video. The next digital technology is project management tools and AI. And having a great construction management software is a vital component for remaining competitive in this business and mastering operational efficiency in the construction business. AI-powered software that can instantly calculate the most efficient schedules for construction will soon become a regular part of operations of construction companies. So forward-looking scheduling software with AI is what we are talking about right now. Automation and robotics is already being developed out there. There are a lot of examples of robotics being used to replace human workers, and this ranges from what we can see here, material handling equipment, to scaffolding, and we even see bricklaying robots in the Western countries. So that's become a reality right now. Many companies, however, claim that robots will never replace any human jobs. So, but I will show you a video on automation of construction using the 3D printing. So let's look at the two videos I indicated to you. Yeah, so this is an example of a company from Mexico City that actually entered the 3D printing market, and they're doing a project in Guatemala. And in fact, the Indian government has also hired a Singapore-based firm to make toilet blocks in the state of Bihar. And currently, I'm looking at a project in East India where we are looking at 3D printing technology to construct low-cost houses in villages in East India. And this is being supported by an NGO which is through University of California, Los Angeles, USA. So we are looking at these technologies, how they can be really adopted and used. A $4,000 is just like it's a 3 lakh rupees home, and about 300, 400 square feet home for 3 lakh rupees is just peanuts. So such technologies are being used for this. So moving to efficiency improving technology, you might have heard about smart contracts, and basically what smart contracts does is offers all organizations in a project a shared system to do business. It allows the buyer and the seller to connect through smart contracts and even pay for the services. So rather than getting contracts and tracking deliverables from different entities or different parties, firms can use smart contracts as an all-in-one tracking system where rules and deadlines are set and the blockchain enforces them. So it's basically blockchain technology that is being used to enforce contracts. Another technology that is being used is drones. And as you know, drones can easily be used for doing a survey of different projects. It could be used over large distances, producing various aerial maps for infrastructure industry. And it's one of the fastest growing tech trends right now in the construction industry that is using the drone technology. And actual decisions can be made remotely with the data that is obtained from drones. The next trend that you can see is the modular manufacturing disruption. And this is nothing but it's the prefabricated construction, which is the construction happens off-site. The module is brought to the site and then is installed using cranes like this. So you can see an entire unit or an entire apartment is being placed in position here in this picture using prefab construction. It's a very old technology, but it's picking up a lot. And in fact, currently a lot of quarantine facilities and hospitals for COVID-19 were quickly constructed using such prefab modular construction technology. So this brings almost an average savings of 16% in project cost and reduces the time completion by as much as 45%. So it's a big, I would say, efficiency mechanism to construct. Materials and systems. So lean construction, this is a methodology which tries to manage and improve construction processes with minimum cost and maximum value by considering customers' needs. And it talks more about to minimize waste of materials, to minimize the time, to minimize the effort. And it's basically a way to design production systems to minimize these waste to generate a maximum value for the project. So lean construction is one of the ways of optimization. Another trend is EHSS, and that means environment, health, safety, and security. Sustainability has been very important for this world. Our future generations will be depending on how we really treat the way we do things, including construction, usage of recyclable materials, renewable energy. All this is nothing but sustainable construction. And basically, this is very important for our future generations. The COVID-19 phenomenon has again increased focus on safety and health on the project site and use of contactless infrared thermometers, security systems. Here you can see a picture of again augmented reality where you have a excavator which is kind of placed on the ground, and the green portion that you see is the safety zone, and the people need to stay out of that safety zone. So these are the kind of augmented reality that can be used to increase safety on the project site. Construction management, and you can actually see by linking energy analysis tools with building information modeling or BIM, architects and engineers are able to harness data on weather, exposure, and building utilization to reduce the cost of powering, lighting. All this can be used for reducing the cost of air conditioning and lighting. So a lot of these tools can be used by architects. And then transfer of living documents to facility managers. Almost 95% of the building construction data gets lost on handover to the first owner from the contractor or the builder. In fact, most of the housing societies in Mumbai that I deal with for their maintenance and repairs do not even have the drawings with them. They don't have any structural drawings. They don't have any architectural drawings, and it's so difficult to get any data from them. So these kind of technologies can be very advantageously used to transfer and hand over data to the first owner and to subsequent owners. So BIM can be a really good way. Market movers. Basically, this relies on real estate agents where physical agents were required to take customers to the home, to show them the home, and to make that sale possible. It was basically a pen and paper kind of industry, and there were numerous, these real estate providers. But now as things have changed, you can't just go and visit every home. If you want to filter down the selection of your home, then it would be easier to use virtual tools considering the COVID-19 situation. And so digital marketing tools will enable project owners to place properties with consumers directly, to show them 3D views of the home that they are proposing to them for sale. And these kind of tools will really help market movers, including the rental segment or the lease segment, and for purchasing homes. So digital marketing tools is going to be disrupting the broker and the real estate agent market very soon. There are already providers in Western countries, and even here we have a few portals that are already providing such services, and these services could be really improvised. So, in summary, I would like to say that the current state of construction industry is alarming. It requires an appropriate strategy. It's a time to rethink and revive this industry. And the key to this is how the construction companies and the builders can really innovate and disrupt in a manner which is good for the customers, which is attractive for the customer. And to disrupt, one needs to understand the job to be done. And we spoke about the job to be done. Developers and contractors need to increase their credibility, and they need to embrace such disruptive technologies and such disruptors like ways of working, like sustainability, like safety, environment, security, and health to their advantage. And so today I was reading something on the lessons from Chinese companies' response to COVID-19. And what I learned is that leaders of these firms responded to tough times not by preserving their resources, but by investing their reserves in strengthening their firm's competitive positions. So you need to invest your reserves further to strengthen the position by adopting such technologies. Also, these firms were aggressively speeding up and expanding their digitization strategies, like all the companies worldwide are embracing digitizing. They are accelerating their digitization drive, and they are ensuring that all their employees garner those skills to utilize these digital technologies. And the third learning I read about is they further recognize that considerable discipline will be required to ensure that these employees do not go back to their old ways of working. They do not revert back to the pre-crisis habits. And this is important because since we are now moving towards something new, it should be helpful to make sure that people don't go back to their old ways of working, and companies adopt such disruptors uh, very clearly in their strategy. So, a few closing quotes. One from Jay Samit. No obstacle is so big that one person with determination can't make a difference. Every person can make a difference. It just requires a thought process. And another one by Rishi Norton, which says, normal is where innovation goes to die. We cannot be normal. We have to keep changing. We have to keep innovating. We have to keep embracing disruption. And that will be the formula for success for our organizations. So, with that, I think I would like to close and ask some questions and answers. You can go ahead with the Q&A session.
Thank you, Tejas. Yes, we have quite some questions, and I'll pick up a few right now. We have a question from
Sure.
Vinay Kumar. He says, China managed to construct a big hospital in 15 days. Where do we stand as compared to them, and what are the improvement opportunities, if any?
So I was looking at a couple of tenders that were floated by uh, Municipal Corporation of Greater Bombay, and the timelines quoted in those contracts for constructing hospitals were something close to 2 months. So China is, I'm saying, far ahead in terms of the speed at which they are really doing construction. I think one of the best ways by which we could easily construct in a much quicker manner would be, like I said, prefab construction, better planning, building information modeling. All these technologies are available, but in India, they're not being adopted very easily because we always think about cost, but we don't think about long-term cost. And the long-term cost is going to go down once we adopt such technology. So yes, we are behind.
Thank you, Tejas. The next question I have is from Shivakumar, and he says that construction is an unorganized sector and labor-intensive industry. However, we don't see any construction body or association coming up with any education or training institutes for grooming these technicians. Any thoughts on that?
So the government does have an institute which trains people. They train the laborers, unskilled laborers, and make them skilled in a lot of construction skills like bricklaying and steel reinforcement, bending and cutting, and those kind of things, and carpentry. So the government does have such initiatives on that. I have seen large private companies like L&T. They have training institutes where they train unskilled people to become skilled. So there are institutes out there. The government is also trying a lot to skill people in these things. We do have a huge resource of manpower, and the manpower is, I would say, pretty reasonable in price for us, and we need to utilize this manpower. We need to utilize this population of migrant workers in the construction industries by skilling them. A much better initiative is required. You have Construction Industry Institute, CII, which is a national body. So there are such bodies there out there, but a much bigger and I would say wider initiative is required for training the manpower out there. The skill levels are going down.
Thank you, Tejas. The next question is from Dinesh, and he says that hello.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I lost the audio for a minute. I was saying that the next question is from Dinesh, and he asks that we agree with your point that workforce has gone back to their homes. What can we do as an industry apart from the government? How can we ensure revival of the construction industry?
So the workforce has gone home. As you can see, based on the past year's records, that this is a crucial time for the workforce to be back home. Farming happens, and once the rains come in, they usually tend to come back. And I think nobody is going to stay back home because they are daily wage workers, and they need to start earning money. And so I'm sure they will come back. I think what contracting companies and developers can do is to reassure them that the working conditions are going to be safer, the working conditions are going to be healthier, the right steps are being taken on the site to make sure that they're not affected by this pandemic. And these kind of reassurances and these kind of steps could attract them back. I think the biggest fear in their mind is the pandemic that is going on, and especially in states like Maharashtra, where it is increasing a lot. I think they fear to be infected, and that's probably the reason they might not come back. But I think these kind of assurances and steps and messages should be sent by actually taking these steps, and by word of mouth. I'm sure that the message is going to reach them, and they're going to come back to work. So I think these are the kind of steps that you need to take, ensure safety, health on the project side, and things will come back to normal. I think people are really raring to come back to normal, come back to their job again.
Thank you, Tejas. We do have a whole lot of questions, but we are running out of time, so we'll have to close the questions for now. I would request the audience to please, you can connect with Tejas on LinkedIn, and his contact details as shown on the slide before. He is very, very active on LinkedIn, and he's also driving this group called Humor in Project Management on LinkedIn. And we hear a lot of interesting stuff in a very quirky manner from him. And it'll be a great thing to follow him on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we close this session, Tejas, I would like to say thank you so much for the session. It has been an interesting session to see a construction point of view. This is the first session that we had on this theme. And going by the questions coming in, people have really gotten engaged with the session today. So thank you so much for all the details and thank you for all the information.
You're welcome, Monica. And thanks everybody for attending this session and asking these interesting questions. Thank you.
So I hope you've all enjoyed the sessions today as much as we've had. Here on the screen, you can see the PDU code for claiming the PDUs for the sessions today. You can either make a note now or anyway, you will be getting an email after the session, including the feedback survey. So you can also pick it up from your email. So do not worry if you have missed out noting this claim code on the screen. Going ahead. Next week's session is going to be an extremely interesting one. We expect to have Sunil Prashara, President and CEO at PMI, and he's going to be speaking about the topic that is on the top of the minds of everybody now. What is the future of work and the project economy in the post-COVID-19 era? And it can't get bigger than this. We'll be having Sunil with us next Saturday, and we hope to see you here back next Saturday on the next session to hear him.